Good, happy Tuesday morning, June 2nd, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Tuesday morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Tuesday morning, so let's begin. First up, COVID-19 in New Hampshire, what you need to know information. Let's take a look at that right now. And here is a look at that information for all of you right now. There are 4,685 number of people in New Hampshire who have tested positive for COVID-19. 1,859,323 number of people in the United States who have tested positive. 245 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 456 number of people who have been hospitalized with COVID-19 in New Hampshire. And 106,925 number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. This map of New Hampshire right here shows you where current cases of COVID-19 are. Nashua, 130. And this map of New Hampshire shows you where total cases of COVID-19 are. Nashua, 473. Now let's take a look at these three charts here. Let's start with the first chart here. New cases each day in New Hampshire. In the purple, daily new positive COVID-19 cases. In the orange, new hospitalizations. And in the red are the deaths. Now let's take a look at this chart here, current cases. In the purple, total current COVID-19 cases. And in the orange, current hospitalizations. Let's take a look at this chart here, total cases. In the purple, total positive COVID-19 cases. In the orange, total hospitalizations. Red, deaths, and blue recovered. Now let's take a look at this chart here. Age group of cases. Female and male of cases. And risk information. And now let's take a look at this chart here, race/ethnicity of cases, hospitalizations, deaths, and percent of New Hampshire population. And your common symptoms: fever, lack of smell, cough, chills, and difficult breathing. How it spreads, and prevention tips. And be sure to stay with the Riley King Network for the latest of your COVID-19 information. Dozens gather in Hampton to protest against racism. Peaceful protests prompted by man's death in Minneapolis. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
As the PGA Tour gets back into the swing of things, at ServPro, we're helping
Hundreds filled the Dover Park Monday night, a candlelight vigil organized by high school students, but drawing people of all ages and backgrounds. People held signs and candles and stood silently except to cheer in appreciation of the messages.
It's exactly what law enforcement likes to see, people exercising their constitutional rights in a peaceful way. And even if there are people with contrary views to the majority, as long as it's done peacefully, law enforcement's always there to support and protect everyone.
Another protest took place in Hampton Monday afternoon, on a much smaller scale, but just as peaceful. Maybe 60 or so protesters gathered on Ocean Boulevard. One even took a moment to thank local law enforcement for being so supportive of their cause. Police officers in attendance even knelt in solidarity.
We have enough articulate and intelligent individuals that live in America today that has said enough is enough. We must rise as a country. We must rise as individuals. There is no black or white, but there is humanity in America.
Now, there was a very small police presence at the vigil in Dover tonight. They were nearby, but I was told they wanted to keep a low profile to let the people gather. Live in Dover tonight, Jason King, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. March day planned in Boston to protest death of George Floyd. Let's take a listen to that video from WCVB Boston.
Light in the darkness. Our mission since the earliest days of electricity. Suddenly, it means so much more. It means building temporary emergency medical facilities, finding and purchasing pallets of PPE to donate to the heroes working on the front lines of this pandemic. It means helping to keep our community moving forward to the extent it can. Light in the darkness. Until a new day arrives, we're all in this together.
Yes, Downtown Crossing, one of the areas hit on Sunday night. You can see here more and more stores are boarding up their windows, some because of the damage done the other night, but also others potentially protecting from any more violence that might outbreak. There is another event scheduled for tonight. Black Lives Matter organizing a rally and a vigil for 5 p.m. in Franklin Park. Organizers say it's a march and a die-in on Blue Hill Avenue. Those are planned after the rally. Now, overnight in Boston, the military police with the National Guard was seen roaming downtown Boston in their vehicles. Police from outside the city also came in to help with security. The increased presence follows Sunday's largely peaceful march and protest from Nubian Square to the State House. Thousands marched through the streets calling for justice. It was not until hours after that that violence and looting broke out on Newbury Street and in Downtown Crossing. Mayor Walsh saying that was not what the city needed.
Some of those stores have been hurt badly by the pandemic and are just on the verge of coming back. They're fighting to survive. Their workers are fighting to support their families.
Businesses spent much of yesterday cleaning up and boarding up windows, both because of the damage and also in preparation for potential rioting. Organizers say that today's vigil, the one happening later this afternoon at Franklin Park, will not only be in the name of George Floyd, but also other victims of police injustice. Live this morning in Boston, Sarah Conji, WCVB News Center 5.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Governor Janet Mills voices concern over President Donald Trump's planned visit to Maine. Let's take a listen to that video from WMTW News 8 Maine.
Giving the class of 2020 recognition they deserve. Channel 8 Senior Shoutouts.
All right, Sarah, thanks so much. We will see you then. President Donald Trump is planning on visiting Maine on Friday. Well, here he'll be touring the Puritan Medical Supplies, which produces coronavirus testing swabs. But not everyone is happy about his visit because of the timing with the coronavirus and the protests breaking out across the country and, of course, right here tonight in Portland over the death of George Floyd. Now, among those who were not happy, Governor Janet Mills, who had a warning for the president if he decided to come on Friday.
I ask, when you arrive here, you rise above the language I heard this morning. I ask that you check the rhetoric at the door
Governor Janet Mills holding a press conference to discuss her concerns with the president visiting Maine on Friday. On a phone call, she says the president lashed out against not only the protesters, but also the governors who were on that call from across the country.
This morning you called the governors of the 50 states weak.
According to Mills, the president wants the governors to do more to shut down the protests.
He told us we needed to dominate the streets and dominate the towns and cities and dominate the people.
Well, on that call, the governor expressed her concern to the president over safety.
We understand you may be coming to the state of Maine later this week. I'm very concerned that your presence may cause security problems for our state. We don't have them yet, so I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
All right, we'll look into that. We have a tremendous crowd of people showing up, as you know, and I think most of them are very favorable. They like their president, but we'll talk to you about that certainly.
Is not alone with her concern. Congresswoman Shelley Pingree, she released a statement on Twitter saying in part, quote, Governor Mills has a good reason to worry that Trump's vitriol could spark unrest here in Maine. Now, we reached out to Maine GOP for comment on the president's visit on Friday, and we have not heard back.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. George Floyd protests live updates for New York City. Curfew ends. Early start set for Tuesday night as looting continues. New York City's 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew ended Tuesday morning, but because looting continued in Manhattan and other parts of the city, the mayor's office announced a second curfew will start even earlier Tuesday night. After looters hit stores all over the city before the curfew went into place, the mayor's office announced the second earlier curfew starting Tuesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. That one will also lift at 5 a.m. Wednesday. The limit on the city of more than 8 million people comes after months of restrictions already imposed because of the coronavirus pandemic. President takes surprise walk from White House to damage church as protesters rage in D.C. Let's take a listen to that video from WJLA ABC 7 News.
Appears that he is going to St. John's, and let me just say, this is a spontaneous move by the president. It appears, we saw members of the White House press corps, it appears that not even they knew what was going to happen, what was going to follow that press conference, the president's remarks. So this is a very spontaneous decision on the president's behalf to take a walk on this Monday evening with all of these protests happening around the White House to St. John's.
And also symbolic, given the fact that he's going to church. You know, maybe he is going to go over there and pray. The tone that he took was clearly one of defiance and strength as far as what should be done against the lawless elements of the protest. The beginning of his speech talked about, you know, the memory of George Floyd should not be drowned out by the actions of people going out there and committing acts, horrible acts that are endangering the people who have set up their life, savings to build a business only to have it looted and burned.
And right there is St. John's. So
there he goes.
And to see the church boarded up, to see all the graffiti that the president passed on his way, this is a historic moment.
It's heartbreaking, too. I mean, there's this church, and it's all boarded up. I wonder if he'll go around to the side of the church. We'll see what happens here. But it's a beautiful yellow building, and the Hay Adams Hotel, which is just right across the way there. I mean, this is history. You know, a lot of Washington, D.C., you throw a stone, you hit something that's been around since our democracy began. It's a beautiful city, and it's just horrible to see that, some of it's now got graffiti on the side, some of it's been damaged, other parts have been, lit on fire, and it's horrible. So a lot of the Secret Service folks that are traveling with the president, these are the ones you're seeing now, they're holding people back. So he has a pretty large contingent. Let's see what's happening. We apologize for the camera that's shaking around. That's just a camera that's staying live on the air while it's running with the president. So hats off to them, but we're getting an idea of what's happening here now. Let's listen in. Cutting in and out. The president was holding up what he said was the White House's Bible, and he was just holding it up. He took it with him over to St. John's, and there's some, this looks like a Republican delegation that he's got with him, members of the House and Senate that are with him.
It's unclear whether they're going to go inside, whether they are going to make further remarks. We're just going to hang on this shot a little while longer till we can really assess what's happening here.
There's the AG, Secretary of Defense, his press person. And I'm not sure if this was a photo op or this was just a stroll. I mean, I'm not sure what was going on here. But if Tom Rousey can hear us and he's got his mic open, maybe we could just listen. We can just listen to him for a second. Hold on.
We have the greatest country in the world. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. So you saw there that the president took a walk to a church close by the White House. Protesters remain peaceful throughout Raleigh, Durham during third night of demonstrations. Protests over George Floyd's death continued Sunday night throughout the country, including North Carolina. Groups marched to demand change and justice throughout American institutions, with some demonstrations turning violent with a tenor of anger and unrest. More than 20 states have enhanced the National Guard, with more than a dozen major cities under a curfew. Here is an 11 p.m. update for North Carolina. Protests are continuing to march in Durham and as Raleigh and Fayett's demonstration end peacefully. Now let's take a listen to this video from ABC 11 News.
Ultimate Lithium is the longest lasting AA battery in the world. Energizer, backed by science, matched by no one.
Yeah, good morning to you, John. We know that the governor will be speaking, but I want to talk about the climate right now, a much quieter morning, even in comparison to yesterday when we still saw people roaming the streets. Let's get into this. Monday, protesters taking to the streets here in Raleigh, but focusing in on the Capitol. They peacefully marched their message throughout downtown, demanding to see more police oversight and an end to brutality and, of course, justice for George Floyd. Those protests would empty out around 8 when the city's curfew went into place. That cutoff designed to curb the looting and destruction that Raleigh businesses have been forced to clean up over the past couple of days. And again, while the governor plans to discuss the next steps, so does the city of Raleigh City Council. They will talk about existing plans for racial equity training. That item, I should note, has been on the agenda for a few days, even before George Floyd's death. I'm Morgan Norwood in downtown Raleigh, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. West Palm Beach police mayors say small group of agitators attacked police after peaceful protest. Police fired rubber bullets, smoke grenades after crowd threw rocks and liquid-filled bottles and fired shots. Let's take a listen to that video from WPBF 25 News.
Do not miss this low payment. New Hondas from $159 a month. KBB.com's best value brand, Honda, all on sale from $159 a month today at your local Honda dealer.
West Palm Beach police saying they closed down streets and I-95 to allow a group of 3,000 to peacefully protest the death of George Floyd starting at 11 a.m. But they say around 7:30 at night, after most began dispersing, a group of about 100 began confronting police.
They began attacking not just our department and members of our department, but people that were innocent, just standing by.
Police say the group of agitators congregated several places in downtown, places the police had not blocked off.
It was the railroad tracks, so they had ammunition, railroad rocks. My vehicle, the windows were busted out. I was hitting the ankle with a rock myself.
Deputy Chief Rick Morris says he alerted Chief Frank Adderley they were under attack and needed a curfew. At the same time, around the city, he says there was looting, destruction, and fires. The sheriff's office sending in 100 additional deputies. This cell phone video showing the scene shortly before police told crowds on Clematis Street they had to leave.
There were warnings given at least 3 times, and don't quote me on that because I know of at least 2, but I believe 3, to cease and desist. There's a curfew in place. They were agitated, more rocks. At one point after that, shots were fired.
Some business owners claiming the police provoked the crowd by shooting rubber bullets and smoke grenades. The police chief telling us in a one-on-one interview that's not true.
I stand behind the men and the women that stood in the street last night that were attacked by this group of people. They hit them with rocks and hit them with bottles filled with water and called them a bunch of nasty names.
Police arresting 4 adults and 1 juvenile, including Wyans Fleury of Deerfield Beach, charged with enticing a crowd to riot against police, and Alexander Savage of West Palm Beach, charged with inciting a riot. And Chief Adderley telling me that he and the rest of the department support the message of the protesters who are out there in honor of George Floyd, but he says they have to do what they have to do to protect the citizens of West Palm Beach against violence, looting, and destruction.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. LAPD arrest robbery suspect after high-speed chase through Los Angeles. Los Angeles police chase a robbery suspect through Hollywood in downtown Los Angeles at high speeds Monday night. Los Angeles police chased robbery suspects through Hollywood and downtown Los Angeles at high speeds Monday night. Officers chased the white Chevy over surface streets onto the 101 freeway and then back onto surface streets in Hollywood. The suspects were wanted for robbery and assault on a police officer. The chase continued at high speeds, and the suspect then returned to the southbound 101 and at times exceeded 100 miles per hour in light freeway traffic. The suspect transitioned to the southbound 110 with at least 3 police units keeping up behind him. The suspect eventually pulled over in the Flores neighborhood of Los Angeles, and 3 people exited the vehicle, running away on foot into the residential neighborhood. Officers chased after them and caught at least one of the suspects. The incident was one of multiple police chases in Los Angeles on Monday, several of them associated with looting in Hollywood, Van Nuys, and other areas. Dow futures jump as investors focus on the economy reopening despite civil unrest. U.S. stock futures were higher in early trading on Tuesday as investors looked past civil unrest around the country and focused on reopening the economy from the coronavirus pandemic. Peaceful displays of support between officers and community. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Finally tonight here, we promise to stay on those images that are just as important. Tonight, so many of you at home reacting to our story last night here. The moments playing out across America. In so many communities, the peaceful protesters welcomed by the officers. In Bellevue, Washington, Police Chief Steve Milet and a demonstrator embracing. In Miami, you could see the line of law enforcement, and then the moment it all changes. A highway patrol trooper walking up to this woman, hugging her. She was grateful.
I love you, man. I love you, man.
In New York's Times Square, an officer who was kneeling, raising his arms. A demonstrator then shaking his hand, the two then hug. You could hear the cheers erupting in the crowd. And it was last night here we introduced you to Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson in Flint, Michigan, who told the demonstrators there, "We are here for you," asking, "What can we do?" When they said march, he did. Tonight here, what he said.
The only reason we're here is to make sure that you got a voice. That's it. Don't think for a second that he represents who these cops are from all over the county and around this nation. We go out there to help people, not do that nonsense. There we go. I'm just going to tell you, we want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. These cops love you. That cop over there hugs people, so you tell us what you need to do. Walk with us! 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 Let's walk! Let's walk!
Saying, "We will protect you, we are with you." They said, "March with us," and so he did. I'm David Muir. I will see you tomorrow. Good night.
Hi, everyone. Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. Thank you for watching this morning edition. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.